No, I meant, no. You're younger than him.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not what I heard.
I didn't.
Did you hear that?
No.
No, I didn't either.
I misspoke.
You're really getting started off on a bad spot here, dude.
I misspoke, Doug.
No, I regret moving.
I immediately regret moving my meeting. I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
And welcome back to another edition of the Politics Unplugged podcast. I want to thank everybody for coming back here for yet another week. And this week, I am proud and happy to be joined by two real experts of the legislature and Arizona politics, Marilyn Rodriguez, representing the Democratic, more left-leaning side of things, and Doug Cole, the traditional old-school Republican. I want to thank you both for being here. I know you guys are busy and taking some time out to talk to us about some of these issues here today.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
All right. And let's start with the big news this week. The abortion ballot initiative. They want to enshrine, protect the access to abortion, announced that it has 500,000 signatures already, far more than they need. I believe they needed about 383,000, 400,000 signatures to qualify for the ballot. But they've already got over 500,000, and they're going to keep continuing to collect signatures until that July 3rd deadline. I want to start with you, Marilyn, and we should point out you do work for Planned Parenthood. So we should probably point that out just off the top.
Yeah, correct. Planned Parenthood is a client. I'm not speaking on their behalf on the pod. I'm here in my capacity as Dennis said, the expert.
Yes, yes, and that's why you're here. But we do,
yeah.
We do this full transparency and disclosure.
Transparency and disclosure. So yeah, 500,000 and counting signatures. They're going for at least 300,000 more. I think they're going to get it. And it's a really, it's an exciting time in politics when we can be focusing in on these issues. It's frustrating, the reasons why that led us to this point, and really, really happy to see that what we keep saying continues to be true, that abortion is a big issue regardless of your political background. It's big on the right, it's big on the left. Folks in the legislature, that seems to be news to some of them. But we didn't get to 500,000 with just liberals signing this petition.
Well, and that's what I was going to say with Doug. I mean, what does this say? It seems like there's already a lot of enthusiasm. 500,000 signatures this early. I mean, they've only been doing this since late September. That's a lot of signatures. Does that point to enthusiasm?
Yeah, and I would applaud the proponents of this ballot initiative for continuing on because it continues the engagement. Remember, this is not going to appear on the ballot until November 5th. And the deadline is early July. So keeping that engagement going is a smart strategy all the way through, and running up the number also, because that just shows how important of an issue this is for so many voters.
And we still don't know the full effects of what's going to happen because we're still waiting on I would say the most important decision in the state Supreme Court history that I can possibly think of, and that has to do with the 1864 territorial law that bans nearly all abortions except for the case where the life of the mother is in jeopardy. The court is still waiting to decide on that, and if depending on how they rule on that could change the dynamics, correct?
Yeah, we're definitely in a time when I will say it does not feel good to constantly be in this position of not knowing what my rights are and whether they're going to change on a dime. And this ruling coming from the Supreme Court is to decide the question about whether Arizona has a near total ban from 1864 or a ban up to 15 weeks. Both, I'll be clear, are completely outside of what is needed and what is necessary, and that's a big impetus for the Abortion Access for All ballot initiative, which brings us up to 24 weeks. But yeah, sometime soon, we're about to find out if the access is going to be limited to basically nothing, or if it will continue as we have had it for the past about year.
Yeah, I think if the Supreme Court rules that the territorial law is still in effect, I think that signature number is going to roll up even higher.
And maybe we'll get to
Yeah.
2 million.
Yeah,
By July 3rd, yeah,
and
right.
Then now, here this week also, since we're talking about stories from this week, is now federally they're talking about the Comstock Act, and then will that be used as another tool to further limit women's reproductive rights, and that really that's kind of podcast stuff, but I don't know how deep you want to go into that.
Well, yeah,
Sorry.
please continue.
I mean, the 1864 ban reflects what we're talking about is the Comstock laws, right? Where in the late 1800s, early 1900s, states across the nation passed legislation to ban abortion care. We call those the Comstock laws. And yeah, it's not just in the state of Arizona that we're having this fight. We're having this conversation nationwide. Florida, right, turned in their ballot initiatives. Their Supreme Court said that they can move forward, but after issuing a very restrictive abortion ban. It's really horrible. And to be clear here, too, I know we talk about the politics of this issue, but it is really, there's a human cost to these bans. And while I agree the motivation would be there to run up the number here, it would be in light of a very tragic circumstance where people who need this critical care are not able to pursue it. And so at the national level, right, there is an attempt to undermine the state's efforts to do this by passing a national ban, which is why you're seeing groups like Abortion Access for All pursue constitutional protections in state law.
But bringing this back to politics, every time this has been on the ballot here in the last couple of years, it's passed. These type of abortion access, women's reproductive right across the country, even in red states, it's passed. So, this is a good, going up to 60,000 feet here. This is a good voter turnout drive for those that on the left, and it's a big issue for the middle. When we talked earlier, we forgot to talk about the middle. And in Arizona, independents are, it's a third, and a third. This is an issue that resonates a lot with that very important block of voters.
And why wouldn't it? I mean, Marilyn, maybe speak to this. I mean, you see ballot initiatives every election cycle. I, for one, just can't think of another ballot initiative that is such a personal decision at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Everything else is like a lot of policy stuff, but this is a real personal thing when you walk into the ballot box, especially if you're a woman, right?
Yeah, I think for anyone. And I wouldn't discount Republicans. I've in the course of my advocacy and my conversations, I've spoken to many Republicans who want some level of access to abortion. And so for the Republican Party and Donald Trump to continue to push for restrictions to this, I think we are so far past the point of being connected to reality and what their constituencies want that those who embrace abortion access will reap the benefits, I think, electorally. And as much as I hate that a reproductive health care choice, a personal choice, is tied to politics, it is. And you're absolutely right. There's ballot initiatives and there's abortion. And this is going to be monumental. This is going to pass. And anybody who embraces it is likely to win. Yeah,
because it was a nice talking point for a long time, Doug, for your Republicans for years, because it was kind of moot. It was not kind of, it was moot.
Because you had Roe.
But now it's like
and you can nibble at the edges around Roe, and now with the Dobbs decision, Roe's gone. But I will have to agree that this issue is going to surpass no matter what else is on the ballot. I agree with Marilyn. It's going to pass by my calculations. But we already have here in Maricopa County, we have 2 cards. Okay, that means 2 pieces of paper as of today. That's 4 sides. Okay. And this ballot initiative is going to be on the latter cards, the latter pieces of paper. I can see people voting for president, voting for U.S. Senate, maybe Congress, and then flipping through what may be a 3-card, 5-6 size ballot, going all the way, going to the 100 series, which will be on the last pages, and voting that one issue, and forget about everything else, and turning their ballot in. People are going to be looking for this, and it's going to be on the last pages of the ballot because it's in the 100 series. So it's going to be interesting to see how many undervotes are going to be.
Yeah, I look at Ohio, right,
Yeah.
where there were these attempts they were called issue 1 for the abortion measure, and then Republicans, much like ours in our legislature, tried to do everything they could to undermine this access. And I'm not going to say that we're seeing that this year from this Arizona legislature, but in years past, we've seen attempts to kind of confuse voters about ballot initiatives, right? And in Ohio, they were diabolical. They had a special election to change how a measure would qualify for the ballot, and they called that issue 1. And again, back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, that there are ballot measures, initiatives, and there's abortion. People are not confused about this. They knew what these politicians were up to. They knew what they were trying to do. And not only did they defeat them, they defeated them in numbers that surprised even the Republicans themselves that were trying to fool their own voters. And then, even in a circumstance where we have a five-page ballot, right? Like, let's just go to the extreme. People are going to find that abortion question and they are going to vote it, and they're not going to be fooled out of doing so, and they're going to know the difference. And so I'm very interested to see what the results will be, but I think that they're going to be very strong.
But what about the idea? Could this be an issue that helps, one party or another, particularly like in the presidential race? Because right now we see Joe Biden is not doing well in Arizona. Trump is leading him in most of the categories, according to the recent Wall Street Journal poll. Could this be an issue that could help someone like Joe Biden?
Absolutely. So there's polling and then there's turnout, right? And at the end of the day, if more of our guys turn out than their guys, we're going to win. And with abortion on the ballot, you're going to see a lot of engagement from the Democratic Party. And say what you will about the President of the United States, he is making every effort and every promise and has taken actions to protect access to reproductive health care. And his opponent is embracing the alternative side of a nationwide ban, is flirting with organizations that want to strip us of our reproductive rights and freedoms and want to undo all of the advances that we've been able to pursue. I mean, this is Trump's legacy. And it is forever tied to him. And as a result, in places like Arizona, where abortion is on the ballot, he will pay that price. And I hope it's enough to bring Biden over the finish line.
Doug, what do you think?
What I think is, on this issue, on women's reproductive rights, advantage Democrats and the progressive side, absolutely.
So rising tide lifts all the Democrat ships, as it were.
But elections just aren't about one thing. Especially on November general elections, there's other things. So what would be advantageous in a perfect political world for the Republican side is something addressing illegal immigration. That tends to be more of a driver on the right side of the spectrum. So that's still an open question. The legislature may refer a similar law of Texas's SB 4 to our legislature. I mean, to the ballot, run it through the legislature. Doesn't have to go to the governor. And that's still in play. Let's see what if that's on the ballot. But I will totally agree that the abortion citizens initiative is a big advantage for the left and for the middle. And for the important middle.
And it also plays out in the down ballot races, too, because a lot of attention is on our U.S. Senate race. Carrie Lake, when she was running for governor, was saying one thing about abortion in the Territorial Act in 22 when she was running, and now she's running for the U.S. Senate saying another thing. Seems like this issue is going to have a big impact on that race, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and I want to be clear, people are not confused about where Carrie Lake stands on abortion. She's made that very clear, and so is the Republican Party. It's just very frustrating to continue to see them move as a block on this issue. I would like to see at some point us return to the before time when Republicans embraced abortion access, but we're not going into that this year. They've chosen their side, and nobody's confused about who stands on which.
And let me ask you this, because I am curious about this. You're talking about turnout. It's a very, again, it's an emotional issue. The most personal issue I think most people in their lifetime is going to be in the ballot box for. Should the Republicans at the legislature have done more this year? Maybe should they have come in, maybe at least repealed the Abortion Act from 1864, or at least put more restrictions for rape and incest on the current 15-week ban? Should they have done more to maybe head this off?
I just don't think that the way with the one vote majority in each house that the Republicans have. I won't say enjoy because it's not enjoyable for anybody. I don't see a path how they could, with the Freedom Caucus and all the other things, all the other forces going through. I just don't know how they could have got anything done. So we have what we have. We know what the playing field's going to be on the abortion issue, and it's going it's going to be on the ballot, and it's going to pass.
Did any Republicans talk to you, Marilyn, this year when you're down there saying, God, if we should be doing something more on this to maybe head this off, what's going to happen in the fall?
Not to head it off, no. They're scared of this issue because not as their individual actions, but that's part of it. The Republican Party has allied itself to a political agenda that is completely opposed to any level of access to abortion, and that ties the hands of their rank and file members, some of whom have told me they would support these some level of access to abortion care. And so it's lose-lose for them because they would have to buck their party. They would have to really stick their necks out in a way that, to the point made a second ago, would probably fail because of the numbers in the legislature. This is just, they have completely fallen on their back foot, and they should have seen this coming. This is several years, multiple generations in the making, and now they're paying the price. There's no untangling this with referring something to the ballot, for instance, because again, we saw what happened in Ohio, we see what's happening in Florida. People are not only are they not confused, they will retaliate against politicians who try to pull that stuff.
And before we're starting to run a little, getting close to running out of time here. We're going to need a few minutes to get into all of this. We had some filings this week with candidates filing their signatures to get on the ballot. As of right now, we're still waiting to see what the signature challenges are and see actually who does get on the ballot right now. But I want to get your guys' opinion, and we'll start with Doug here.
Got lots of data.
Your nickname is Big Data.
That's true. That's true.
They call him Big Data, folks, for a reason. What were some of the things that stood out for you, other than the fact that the QAnon shaman didn't make it?
Did not make it. And
QAnon shaman.
And Paul Boyer didn't file signatures for mayor of Glendale.
Yeah, it was. There you go.
I think that's surprised a bunch of people. But there wasn't a lot of surprises. It just solidified. What's different now is we have what's called eQual, which people can go online and sign petitions, and you can sign a bunch of them. And we haven't had the utilization of that to the extent that we have now. And if it's an eQual signature, it's a good signature. So you don't need to drive up the numbers, to have a buffer like you did in the old days. And we don't really know without going down to the Secretary of State's office or on the local races down to county or city clerk's offices to know exactly who did eQual and who didn't. But, not a lot of surprises. There is the folks that are going to run in the swing districts have turned up. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this election cycle, which way I think the legislature goes. That's what everybody's watching. Is it going to be a tide? One chamber's going to be tied like we had from 2000 to 2002 in the state Senate. Are we going to have a Democrat majority in one of them? It's all up in the air right now.
And what do you think? I mean, you start talking about, Democrats taking control of a chamber or both. What do you see happening, and what are some of the key races you think shaping up from this week that could determine balance of power at the legislature?
So that's definitely on the table, and I want to make sure we talk about that. But I want to make sure we also don't miss the fact that the Maricopa County races are going to be kind of a referendum on legislative power and a check on legislative power from the past couple of years, because nobody listening probably has forgotten about the big cyber ninjas election conspiracy issue where not too long ago, right, the state legislature tried to, and was one vote short of arresting the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors for not turning over all of our ballots in participation of an attempted coup on our democracy. And so now, in the legislature and primarily in the Maricopa County races, we're seeing primaries where every single candidate has an election-denying opponent.
Including the recorder.
Yes, the recorder, the sheriff, the county attorney, and every single Board of Supervisors seat has an election-denying candidate running on an election-denying slate with the intention of not making that same mistake again in the event there's an attempt again to overthrow the votes of Arizona's electors. And, you know, to the legislative point, Doug has this long list here printed. Like, folks listening can't see this, but there is this pile of paper he has with all of these different races and electoral contests on where we're watching. I think I'm not going to zero in on certain races. I think because of the abortion measure, almost every district is on the table for the taking for the Democratic Party. And I think they know that too, and they have fielded candidates for the most part in every race. And while there are some races or some districts that are safer than others, I don't want anybody to think that they're completely safe, again, because of this single issue on the ballot and our connection to it and just how many people are in support of it and are sick of politicians trying to strip away that freedom.
Yeah, let me go back to that just a bit. I will agree with you that the election denialism is a loser for Republicans. It is a loser, and candidates that are going to make their race as a Republican to become elected to whatever office they're running for. Polls time and again, including today, show that is a losing proposition. And if the Republican Party continues to primary coming out of the primary with these candidates, you know, those are ripe positions for the Democratic Party to pick up. So if they want to continue to talk about how the election was stolen, this election's going to be stolen, rolling back, like we were talking about abortion, rolling back voter access, that's just not a winner again for the Republican Party.
And I think what Marilyn was talking about too, when you look at the county races, you could see a lot of those races getting won by one of those election-denying Republicans and then getting trounced.
Exactly.
In the general election,
that was my point I was just making.
Yeah, an amazing overhaul.
Right.
Because the Republicans have controlled county government for as long as I can remember.
It's been 4-1 on the Board of Supervisors for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been 4-1. I see scenarios where it could be could go either which way, or gain a seat here. We can maybe gain 2 seats. District 5, is a very Democrat district. It's going to stay Democrat. Steve Gallardo very capably represents that district. But the big districts that we're going to watch is District 2, which is Tom Galvin's seat. Michelle Ugenti-Rita running against him.
She voted to arrest the board because they refused to turn over the ballots.
And then in District 3 have an open seat because Bill Gates has decided to retire. And in that case, you have Kate Brophy-McGee running, and you have Danny Valenzuela running on the Democratic side. District 4 is going to stay Republican, and that's going to be Debbie Lesko. As you know, she's retiring from Congress, and she's going to. That is so red. I don't see any gain
she
there.
voted to overturn the election results during the January 6th insurrection. So,
she wins that race.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, no, she does, Marilyn. She wins that race, and then of course you have District 1 that Chairman Jack Sellers is running in now. So there are potentials for gain. And then on the county recorder side, you have State Representative Justin Heap, who was a member of the Freedom Caucus, is running against Stephen Richer.
Yeah, and he's run several election-denying bills as well. He's part of the slate.
So the sleepy Maricopa County races are going to be, are going to be a lot of people are going to be talking about those.
Yeah.
Probably those of us on this podcast.
And those are the ones for a lot of listeners. And I think. I give our listeners, viewers, a lot of credit because if you're tuning in here, you're probably a little more informed than the average public. But the thing is, I always tell people I meet, the county government stuff, the local, that's the stuff that really affects your life. That vote for county attorney, for the sheriff, probably impacts your life a whole lot more than who you vote for president, at least in my opinion. Yeah. And so, because these are the guys, these are the people that run the governments, the recorder runs the elections. Yep. Rachel Mitchell, the county attorneys, they're the ones that mete out justice, and the sheriff we've seen, they're the ones that they're patrolling the streets out there. But I think we're going to have to leave it at that. I know we were trying to keep it at a tight 20, but I think we ran over a little bit. And I want to thank you so much for stopping by here.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much. I found the conversation very fascinating and very informative. So thank both of you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Oh, and hold on. I also want to say, normally for normal viewer or listeners of the podcast, normally we come back and do a second half of this, but producer extraordinaire Colin is on assignment, so he will not be here this week, and we probably won't be, and we'll not be having a second half of the podcast. So thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll check you out next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.